A little while ago, I picked up this Toshiba Satellite 4000 CDT laptop. It's got a number of issues, so today we're going to rectify those and restore the laptop. Let's get started. The first thing I'll do is actually make sure the laptop still works after 20 years. Once pressing the power button, as we can see, the laptop springs right to life, displaying a Toshiba logo. However, a little while later, it gets to a password screen, so we can't go any further into the operating system. The only solution I found to rectify this problem online was to stick a bunch of wires into the printer port, and apparently that would bypass the CMOS password. I was very skeptical of this working or not, but I really had nothing to lose since the laptop was basically bricked in its current state. So I reluctantly started putting wires into the printer port as the online document stated to. This was pretty hard, and it was definitely a challenge to line them all up and put them in the right holes, but I managed eventually, so let's see if that did it. Well, thankfully after pressing the power button, the laptop still works, so we haven't made it any worse. And would you believe it or not, but we actually get to a bad CMOS screen. How awesome is that? This actually worked. Wow, I'm really stunned. At this point, some might consider the laptop to be fully fixed, but I want to go a step further. There's allegedly a bunch of CMOS batteries inside of this computer, which will eventually kill it, and it's almost a ticking time bomb. So I think we need to pull the whole laptop apart and remove those now. I managed to find a service manual for this laptop online, which is going to make this whole task a lot easier. As you can see, it gives you detailed instructions on how to pull the laptop apart. These were a little tricky to interpret, so enjoy this next segment where I show you how to pull this laptop apart. The first thing we need to do is turn it over. Then you need to slide to the right on this battery cover, and then the battery slides right out. Next, remove any expansion cards within the laptop, as shown here. Now turn the laptop back over and very carefully using your fingernails, pry out this little thing at the top here, this plastic bit. It should come out relatively easy, but just don't force it. Now we need to remove the keyboard. Just simply lift up and very carefully turn it over. You've got an extremely delicate ribbon cable here, which you'll then need to remove. Once the keyboard's out, we need to remove the RAM, so lift up this cover using some tweezers. Then get hold of the two sides holding the RAM in and lift it out very slowly. Then it comes straight out. Turn the laptop back over and then unscrew this panel here, which is where the hard drive lives. Then carefully pull back as shown here and lift the hard drive out in its cage. Now we need to remove all the screws from the back. First of all, unscrew these 3 short screws shown here. Then we need to remove the 5 big ones. Now my laptop is actually missing one, but yours will have 5. Now remove these 2 screws on the back as shown here. Turn the laptop back over and then remove this little plastic cover here and very carefully disconnect that little cable. I can't stress this enough, these things will break very easily, so you need to be very careful. Next, repeat this with the display connector. Then, over on the right hand side, remove this piece of tape and remember to set it aside. From there, you can go ahead and unplug these 2 connectors very carefully. Now it's time to unscrew these 4 screws which are circled in red. Don't remove any more. Now you need to very gently pry around the edges of the laptop to separate the clips and remove the top part. Now I know you shouldn't be using a metal screwdriver, but it's all I had on hand. I was being very delicate. Try to use plastic tools or just your hands if you can. After doing that for a while, as you can see, the top of the laptop lifts right off. Very carefully place that aside. And also the screen's going to be top heavy, so maybe put the screen down. And would you look at that, we found them, the pesky batteries. Let's get rid of this tape and get these things out of here before they cause any more damage than they already have. Thankfully these ones were isolated from the boards, so they haven't actually corroded anything, which means once they're removed this laptop should last indefinitely, because there's nothing that can really damage it other than how it's stored. As you can see, where the batteries plug in, there's already a bit of damage occurring, so I'll very carefully try to remove the batteries now. It was pretty hard and I ended up breaking the connectors, but so long as the battery's gone, I'm happy. And get a look at that, we actually got the batteries out. There we go. Now these things may seem harmless, but trust me, they're not. You really want to remove these from your vintage laptops. Now we need to reassemble the laptop, so here's a quick little montage of me doing that. Well, there we go, the laptop is fully reassembled. Now let's see if it can actually boot into an operating system. So it turns out that the original hard drive in this laptop was actually dead. I tried to get it to work, I imaged it, I did everything, nothing would work. So I'm going to be replacing it with this 48GB IBM drive instead. Now this really isn't period correct, but it should work just fine, and I'm more interested in getting the laptop working than anything, so yeah. And I could have gone with something like an SD to IDE, but I didn't have time and it would take a few weeks to arrive, so maybe I'll replace it in the future, but for now this IBM drive should work just fine. And it slides into the laptop pretty easy here. Then we can just go ahead and reinstall the cover. So one thing I forgot to mention is that I actually already imaged the IBM hard drive with an install of Windows 95. Now I did this mainly just to save time, and it's way easier than installing Windows by hand. Though the only issue is there's no drivers installed, which sucks. But it still works fine, just for demonstrating that the laptop does now work. So after a little while of installing all of these drivers, the laptop actually locked up when getting to some chipset drivers. Now I tried reinstalling these a few times, but it would always just get stuck at the chipset drivers. Now my best guess is because this is a laptop and the image I used is from a desktop, so there could be a major incompatibility somewhere. Now the other thing is I couldn't really find Toshiba restore disks for this laptop online, so I can't really restore it back to how it would have been, and it's not really worth installing Windows 95 on it if I can't find the drivers anyway. So if somebody has a link to some restore disks for this laptop, that'd be awesome. But until then, I don't think it's really worthwhile to install Windows 95 manually and not have any drivers installed. So we're going to have to leave this restoration just about here, I think. Either way though, it is really cool to have this laptop completely fixed and to have that peace of mind knowing that it won't be dying on me anytime soon. But yeah, that's about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this laptop restoration, and I'll see you next time.